History tells us that Europe's kings were all white, but hidden in chronicles, in cathedrals, and in statues across the continent are the faces of black rulers who wore the crown. For nearly 800 years, from Spain to Sicily, from France to Germany, black Moors ruled thrones across Europe, and their names were erased. This is their story, 10 forgotten black kings of Europe, whose reigns shaped the very foundations of the West. It begins in the year 711, when a general of African descent crossed the sea from North Africa with an army of Africans. His name was Tariq ibn Ziyad, and the rock where he landed still bears his name, Jabal Tariq, Gibraltar. Christian chroniclers wrote of him with awe and fear. Rodrigo Jimenez de Rada, a Castilian writer centuries later, recalled him as the black-skinned Saracen general who brought ruin upon the Visigoths. The earliest witness, the anonymous author of the Chronicle of 754, painted the moment with terror. The reins of their horses were as fire, their faces black as pitch. The noble Goths were broken in an hour. O luckless Spain! Tariq's arrival was more than a conquest. It was the opening of a new age. His victory shattered the old Visigothic order, and from the ashes rose a new kingdom, Moorish Spain, where Africans would rule on European soil. From that beginning came dynasties. Abd al-Rahman I, a prince of the fallen Umayyad house, fled through Africa after the massacre of his family in Damascus. In 756, he established himself in Cordoba and built a new emirate. The Arab historian al-Makari described him. He was of dark complexion, tall, and of noble African bearing. Abd al-Rahman was more than a survivor. He was a builder. Under him, Cordoba grew into a capital of power and sophistication. Gardens bloomed, libraries multiplied, and the Mosque of Cordoba began to rise, its arches a statement of a new order. He proved that Moorish kings were not simply invaders passing through. They were rulers of Europe itself. Generations later, Abd al-Rahman III declared himself Caliph of Cordoba in 929, making his kingdom the equal of Baghdad and Cairo. His power was vast, his learning profound, but his appearance was remembered most vividly by those who saw him. The historian Janina Safran notes, drawing from Arabic sources, that his complexion was dark, his hair was thick and curly. His African ancestry was clear. Yet in European paintings centuries later, he was often whitened, his true features denied. Under Abd al-Rahman III, Cordoba became the most advanced city in Europe. Hasdai ibn Shaprut, a Jewish envoy, marveled that it contained more than 70 libraries and learning from Africa, Arabia, and beyond. The city's streets were lit by lamps, while London and Paris remained dark and muddy. A black caliph presided over Europe's jewel. The line of kings continued with the formidable Almanzor ibn Abi Amir, remembered in Christian lands as Almanzor. Rising from humble beginnings, he became the most powerful man in Cordoba, leading over 50 campaigns against the Christian north. Ibn Idari, the Moorish chronicler, wrote simply, "He never lost a battle." In 997, his armies carried the bells of Santiago de Compostela's cathedral on the backs of Christian captives to Cordoba. His name was spoken in France with dread, the black general Almanzor, whose raids shook Christendom. His power extended beyond Spain, proving that Moorish kingship was a force across borders. From the Sahara itself came another king, Yusuf ibn Tashfin of the Almoravid dynasty. Ibn Khaldun, the great historian, described him. Dark of skin, thin and ascetic in his dress, but mighty in his command. When Christian armies threatened to overwhelm Moorish Spain, it was Yusuf who crossed into Europe. At the Battle of Sagrajas in 1086, he crushed the Christian forces and restored Moorish control. He ruled both Morocco and much of Spain, a black king whose empire spanned 2 continents. Yusuf built Marrakesh into a capital, but his shadow fell over Europe, where his victories preserved the Moorish thrones for generations. The Moors did not confine themselves to Iberia. In 827, they invaded Sicily, and by the 10th century, rulers like Hasan al-Kalbi transformed Palermo into one of Europe's greatest cities. The geographer Ibn Hawqal wrote, "Palermo is larger than any city in Italy, filled with gardens and palaces." Under the Kalbid dynasty, Sicily became a jewel of learning and prosperity. Its irrigation, architecture, and culture bore the mark of Africa. The golden mosaics that still glitter in Palermo's cathedrals are the legacy of Moorish kings who once ruled the island. Another African dynasty that cast its shadow over Europe was that of al-Mu'izz ibn Badis of the Zirids. Though his seat was in North Africa, his reach extended across the Mediterranean into Italy. His armies and governors held Sicily, and his scholars and artisans shaped its culture. The historian al-Bakri wrote of his reign, "The people of Sicily bowed to his governors, and his African armies held the land." Under al-Mu'izz, African knowledge, law, and art crossed into Europe, fusing with local traditions and leaving monuments that still stand. Beyond Iberia and Italy, black kingship appeared in surprising places. In Germany, in the Cathedral of Magdeburg, stands the statue of Saint Maurice, a black African knight venerated as a saint and royal figure. Carved in the 13th century, his features are unmistakably African. Art historian Gude Sukale Redlefsen observed, "Maurice's face is that of an unmistakably African man, with tightly curled hair and full lips, carved in stone at the very heart of Germany." Here was a black king, immortalized not in chronicles, but in stone, honored as a symbol of chivalry and faith at the center of Europe. In Cologne too, the memory of black kings was preserved. The Shrine of the Three Kings in the Great Cathedral includes depictions of the Magi, and from the 14th century onward, one of them is clearly shown as black, crowned and regal. Jean de Visse, the art historian, wrote, "The black magus was not a servant, but a king. His crown, a recognition that Africa produced rulers equal to any in Europe." These were not minor decorations. They were central to Christian Europe's greatest shrines. The image of black kingship was carved into Europe's sacred spaces. The last of the Moorish kings was Boabdil, Muhammad XII of Granada. In 1492, he surrendered the city to Ferdinand and Isabella, ending nearly 800 years of Moorish rule in Europe. Spanish historian Luis del Marmol Carvajal described him. His features were Moorish, his skin dark, and his eyes deep with sorrow when he left Granada. His mother's words are said to have cut him deeply. "Weep like a woman for what you could not defend as a man." With Boabdil's exile, the line of Moorish kings in Europe ended. Yet even in defeat, he remained a king of African heritage, the last in a line that had ruled from Gibraltar to Sicily, from Cologne to Cordoba. For 8 centuries, Europe's thrones were not only white. Black kings ruled its cities, built its palaces, and commanded its armies. Tariq ibn Ziyad opened the way. Abd al-Rahman built Cordoba. Abd al-Rahman III lit its lamps. Almanzor carried terror into Christian lands. Yusuf ibn Tashfin spanned continents. Hasan al-Kalbi turned Palermo into a jewel. Al-Mu'izz ibn Badis tied Africa to Sicily. Saint Maurice was immortalized in stone. The Black Magus crowned in Cologne. And Boabdil wept as the last Moorish king departed Granada. Their faces were dark, their hair curly, their bearing African, and the chronicles testify even when paintings do not. Europe has tried to erase them. Painters whitened their portraits. Historians silenced their names. But stone does not lie. The statue of Saint Maurice still stands in Magdeburg. The Black Magus still gazes from Cologne's cathedral glass. The arches of Cordoba and the mosaics of Palermo still gleam with Moorish artistry. These were not shadows, nor myths, nor outsiders. They were kings of Europe, black kings, forgotten by design, but not lost. Their thrones were broken, but their memory endures, And today, we speak their names again. The sea was crossed, the banners raised, Europe trembled, the world amazed. From Africa's shore, the Moors set sail, and history bent beneath their trail. Tariq came with a firestorm's hand, his warriors dark as the desert's sand. The chronicles cried in mournful strain. The reins of their horses were as fire, their faces black as pitch. The noble Goths were broken in an hour. O luckless Spain! al-Rahman built Cordoba's might, where lamps of learning outshone the night. In halls of marble and gardens wide, the wisdom of Africa would not hide. Almanzor struck with iron will, and all of Christendom fears him still. Yusuf came with Saharan flame, and Europe remembered the Black King's name. Palermo blossomed, mosaics shone, Hasan al-Kalbi claimed that throne. Al-Mu'izz stretched his hand across, and Sicily bowed beneath his cross. In Magdeburg, carved deep in stone, St. Maurice stands, his black face known. In Cologne's glass, the Magus reigns, a crown on his brow that still remains. Boabdil wept when thrones were gone, but Moorish glory forever shone. 8 centuries their banners flew, and Europe's heart their blackness knew. Though history tried to lock the door, their truth breaks chains forevermore. So speak their names, let memory soar. These Black Kings ruled, forgotten no more. Thanks for watching this episode. Do remember to like, comment, subscribe and share, and look out for the next one on Africa's great civilizations.